My daughter chose the man who violated my consent over me. So I walked away. Luna sat at my kitchen table like she was about to announce a promotion, not a bomb. The late afternoon light caught the gold foil on the sample invitation she'd brought, making everything look prettier than it felt. She smoothed the paper with her palm and said in this calm, rehearsed voice, "So, I've decided. I want my biological father to walk me down the aisle." Across from her, Mark's hands froze on the arms of his wheelchair. I watched his knuckles go from pink to paper white as his grip tightened. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. The refrigerator hummed, the clock ticked, the house sounded normal, and my brain refused to catch up. Mark swallowed. I thought I was your dad," he whispered. His voice sounded like sandpaper. We'd been married 26 years. He taught her to ride a bike. He'd sat through every school play, every broken heart. The man who changed her diapers was sitting 3 feet away, and she'd just erased him. Luna rolled her eyes like he'd asked something ridiculous. "You are," she said quickly, too quickly. "You're my dad, obviously. But Victor is my father. It's symbolic, Mom. It's healing." She looked at me when she said healing, like I was supposed to clap. My stomach dropped so fast I actually reached for the table. "Victor?" I croaked. My tongue felt thick. I hadn't said his name out loud in years. You've been talking to Victor?" She looked annoyed that I said his name like that. "We found each other online months ago," she said. "I didn't want to tell you until I knew he was serious. He's changed, Mom. He's really sorry about what happened back then. He said he wants to make amends. Walking me down the aisle is part of that." Mark made this choked sound, half laugh, half sob. "Make amends," he said. "By taking my place at our daughter's wedding?" I could feel the air thinning. My chest started to buzz, the way it did when a panic attack crept in, but I forced myself to breathe. "Luna," I said, each syllable tight. "You know exactly what he did to me." She sighed, like I was dredging up something ancient and boring. "Mom, that was 30 years ago. People grow. He told me he's tried to reach out before, but you shut him down. He said he's been sober for years. He has a family. That man violated my consent," I snapped, louder than I meant to. Mark flinched. Luna's eyes widened, then hardened. "He forced himself on me sexually when I said no. I spent years trying to put myself back together. And you want him to escort you into your marriage like some kind of hero?" Her jaw clenched. "You need to stop saying he violated my consent, like it's the only thing that's ever happened in your life," she shot back. "I'm not erasing your trauma, but I'm not going to let it dictate my future either. This is my wedding, my choice." The room felt smaller by the second, like the walls were leaning in. I looked at Mark. His eyes were wet, but he hadn't moved, wheels locked in place. The man who'd raised her was being treated like a placeholder. "I'm not asking you to forgive him," Luna went on. "Just be civil. Sit on the other side of the room if you have to. But I want him there. I want him to walk me down the aisle. I want to reclaim this." The word reclaim made me see red. "Reclaim what?" I asked. "The night he ruined my life? The years I spent being called a liar? The nightmares? I can't sit in a church and watch that man touch you and pretend it's some beautiful healing moment. I won't." "So you're refusing?" she demanded. Her cheeks were flushed, her voice rising. "You're really going to boycott your own daughter's wedding because you're still stuck in the past?" It came out before I could soften it. "If Victor is there, I will not be." Silence slammed down. Somewhere down the hallway, our younger daughter Mia's door shut quietly, like she'd been listening. Mark closed his eyes. Luna stared at me like I'd slapped her. "You're ruining my wedding," she said, her voice shaking now. "Do you realize how insane that sounds? You're punishing me for wanting a relationship with my father." "I am protecting myself," I said, my hands trembling on the table. "And whether you like it or not, I'm protecting you from a man who hurt me in the worst way." She let out a bitter laugh. "You're not protecting anyone. You're making everything about you, like always." She snatched up her phone from the table so fast it knocked against the wood. "You need to stop hanging on to the past and grow up, Mom." "Luna," Mark said softly, reaching out a hand that didn't quite make it across the table. "Please, just think about what this means. She cut him off with a sharp gesture. "You're the one who always told me forgiveness is important," she snapped. "Guess that only applies when it's your feelings, not hers." I stared at the invitation on the table. My name was printed in looping script. "Eva and Mark Carter request the honor." And below, in smaller gold letters, "With special honor to Victor Novak." Seeing his name there made my skin crawl. It felt like someone had dug up a grave and set it in the middle of my kitchen. "I can't do it," I said again, quieter this time. I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince anymore. Her, Mark, or myself. Luna pushed back her chair so hard it screeched on the tile. She slung her purse over her shoulder, eyes glittering with tears she refused to let fall. At the doorway, she paused, looked back at me with a face I barely recognized. "If you're not there," she said, voice cold and clear, "don't ever call me daughter again." The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the cabinets. The sound echoed through the house and settled in my bones. Mark let out a breath that sounded like it hurt. I sat there across from him, staring at Victor's name in gold, realizing that my absence might cost me my relationship with Luna, and wondering if being present would cost me what was left of myself. 3 days later, my phone buzzed with a text from Luna. Lunch? Just us? I have a surprise that might help. The words might help hooked into me. I'd spent those days cycling between anger, guilt, and this deep gnawing fear that I'd really lost her. So when she suggested meeting at a little restaurant downtown with a garden patio, I said yes. The place was one of those trendy spots with string lights and potted plants everywhere. It should have felt cozy. Instead, as I followed the hostess through the main dining area, my shoulders stayed up around my ears. Luna bounced next to me in a sundress, her hair in loose waves like when she was a teenager. I know we fought, she said, looping her arm through mine, but I've been thinking a lot. I want this wedding to be healing for all of us. So I've been talking to someone, and I think this could be really good for you. A small, stupid part of me thought she'd booked a session with a counselor, or arranged a spa day, or something gentle. I pictured us in some quiet room with tea, finally talking without shouting. I let that hope pull me forward as we turned a corner toward a more secluded section of the patio. Then I saw him. He was standing by a private booth tucked under a vine-covered trellis, wearing a pressed shirt and that same practiced half-smile I remembered from university parties. His hair was more salt than pepper now, his face lined, but his eyes, those calculating two bright eyes, were exactly the same. Eva, he said, opening his arms like we were old friends. It's been a long time. My vision tunneled. All the air left my lungs in a whoosh. The sounds of clinking cutlery and soft music faded under a roaring in my ears. I stopped dead, my body refusing to move another inch closer. Luna squeezed my arm. Mom, breathe, she said quickly. It's okay. This is your healing journey, remember? Just like we talked about. Victor stepped forward, closing the distance I'd frozen against. Easy, he murmured, like he was soothing a skittish animal. His hand reached out and grabbed mine, steadying me. The feel of his skin on mine was like an electric shock. In an instant, I was back in a dim dorm room, his weight pinning me down, his breath in my ear as I said no, no, no. And he ignored every word. My knees buckled. Don't touch me, I gasped, but it came out thin, swallowed by the panic surging through me. My heart hammered so hard, I felt it in my throat. The edges of my vision went black. Mom, it's okay, Luna kept saying, her voice weirdly far away. He just wants to apologize. He's changed. This is for you. This is your healing journey. The phrase made me want to scream. I yanked my hand free, stumbling backward. A chair caught my calf, and I nearly went down. People at nearby tables were turning to look now, forks halfway to their mouths. I have to go, I heard myself say. Or maybe I just thought it. My chest was so tight, I couldn't tell if I was breathing. The patio spun. Plants, string lights, white tablecloths blurring together. Eva, please, Victor said. We should talk like adults. We were kids back then. We both made mistakes. His voice had that same oily calmness, like he was the reasonable one. The word mistake slammed into me. I clawed at the nearest solid thing, a wooden post, trying to steady myself. Get away from me, I choked out, louder this time. A server appeared at the edge of my vision, eyes wide. Ma'am, do you need water? Do you want me to call someone? I'm fine, I lied, even as my fingers went numb. I need my car. I don't remember how I got off the patio. I have this blurry memory of pushing through the restaurant, someone calling my name, a hostess asking if I was okay. The next clear image is my hands shaking so hard on my steering wheel that I couldn't fit the key in the ignition. I slammed the door, locked it, and then the sobs hit. Big, ugly, gasping cries that made my chest hurt. I leaned my forehead against the cool leather and tried to regulate my breathing. In, out, in, out. It wasn't working. I grabbed my phone with clumsy fingers and hit Alex's name. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, Mom, I can't drive, I blurted. Alex, I can't breathe. She brought him. She brought Victor. I'm at that restaurant on Maple, the one with the patio. Please, I need you to come get me. His tone changed instantly. Stay in the car, he said. Lock the doors. I'm leaving now. Don't move, okay? I'll be there in 10. The minutes between that call and his car pulling up next to mine felt like hours. I kept expecting to see Luna's face at the window or Victor's, but no one came. I just sat there, sobbing into my hands, while the world went on eating lunch around me. When Alex finally opened my car door, he didn't ask questions. He just took one look at my face, unbuckled my seatbelt with gentle fingers, and helped me stand. We'll talk about this later, he said quietly, steadying me as if I were the one in a wheelchair. Right now, let's get you home. That night, after Mark had helped me into bed and then wheeled himself back to the kitchen, I found myself sitting at the table again, this time with Alex across from me too. The house was dim, just the overhead light humming softly. My hands were wrapped around a mug of tea I'd forgotten to drink. I think it's time we hear the full story, Alex said gently. He was 30 now, taller than Mark, with his father's steady eyes. No more pieces. No more it was complicated. Mark nodded. You don't have to, he said. But if you're ready, I think we need to know. So we can help. I stared at the wood grain on the table. For years I'd given them the outline. A bad night, a betrayal, a pregnancy. I'd never walked them through the details, never used the words I used in my own head. But after that patio ambush, after feeling Victor's hand on mine again, the dam inside me cracked. I was 19, I started, my voice barely above a whisper. We were all in that tiny university town. You know that part. Victor and I were friends. We studied together. We went to the same parties. He was charming. Everyone liked him. My mother loved him. She kept hinting I should date him. I could see it as I spoke. The cramped living room of the off-campus house, the mismatched couches, the sticky coffee table. There was this party, I said. End of term. I'd had a few drinks, but I wasn't out of it. I remember telling him I was tired, that I wanted to go home. He offered to walk me back to my dorm. My throat tightened. Mark reached across the table and laid his hand over mine. You're safe here, he murmured. I trusted him, I said. We'd walked home together 100 times. But when we got to my dorm, he asked if he could come up. Just to talk, he said. I said no. I said I was tired. He laughed and said I was being dramatic. The next part still made my skin crawl. He followed me in anyway. He knew the code. We got to my room, and I told him again, I just wanted to sleep. He sat on my bed. I kept saying no. He kept pushing, kissing me, touching me. I kept saying no. I tried to push him away. He was stronger. My voice cracked. He forced himself on me sexually, I said, the words tasting like acid. He ignored every no. When it was over, he acted like we'd just crossed some line we'd both secretly wanted to cross. He told me not to be so dramatic. Alex's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle ticking. Mark's eyes were closed, his thumb tracing slow circles on my hand. I went to the campus health center the next day, I continued. I told them what happened. They said it would be hard to prove anything because we were friends, because I'd let him walk me home, because I'd had drinks. They called the local police. The officer who came basically asked me what I thought would happen, inviting a boy to my room at night. I remembered sitting in that cramped office, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, as a middle-aged man in uniform took notes and looked bored. They interviewed him, I said. He told them I was embarrassed because I'd cheated on my boyfriend, on Mark. He said I'd regretted it and was trying to cover my tracks. Alex swore under his breath. Mark's grip tightened. Even my own mother believed him, I whispered. She said, Eva, you've always been dramatic. Maybe you let him on. She begged me not to press charges, said it would ruin his life and make our family look bad. I swallowed. I tried anyway. The case went nowhere. They called it, he said, she said. People stopped sitting with me in the cafeteria. Victor still went to parties, still laughed, still told everyone we'd had a fling, and I'd gotten clingy. And then you found out you were pregnant, Mark said quietly. I nodded. I was already with you by then, I said, looking at him. We'd started dating a few months before. When I told you, you were the only one who believed me. You said you'd stand by me, that we'd raise the baby together, that you didn't care whose DNA it was. Alex looked between us, his eyes shining. So you kept it quiet for Luna's sake, he said slowly. You didn't want her to grow up as the girl from that case. I thought I was protecting her, I said. Protecting our family. I moved to this city, cut ties with everyone there, changed my number. I thought if I never said his name again, he couldn't touch us. Mark squeezed my hand. Luna deserves the truth, he said gently. All of it. She's making choices based on a story Victor is feeding her. She needs to hear yours. My chest constricted. What if it destroys her? I asked. What if knowing she's the result of that night ruins how she sees herself? What if she hates me? Alex shook his head, anger simmering under his calm. Mom, keeping it from her hasn't protected her, he said. It's given him room to rewrite history. He's already back in our lives because of the silence. We sat there in the dim kitchen, the three of us anchored by the same ugly truth. Finally, Mark said, we should talk to someone, a professional, before we tell her. So you're not carrying this alone again. I'd avoided therapy for years, convinced I could manage my panic attacks with sheer willpower. But after seeing Victor's smug face at that restaurant, after feeling my body betray me in front of my own daughter, I knew white-knuckling it wasn't working. Okay, I whispered. We'll talk to someone. Then I'll tell her. That night in bed, staring at the ceiling, I kept seeing two images overlaying each other. Victor's hand grabbing mine at 19, and Victor's hand grabbing mine at 50. I knew the next conversation with Luna could shatter everything we'd built. But the alternative, letting Victor script our lives from the shadows again, was worse. A week later, Luna sat on our living room couch like she was at a job interview. Her back was straight, her legs crossed, her hands folded in her lap. Mark's wheelchair was parked beside my armchair. He'd insisted on being there, but let me lead. I'm sorry I yelled, I started. My palms were already sweating. I shouldn't have raised my voice. But I need you to really listen now, okay? No interruptions. She looked skeptical but nodded. Okay. I took a breath that felt like it scraped my ribs. You know, Victor and I were friends, I said. We grew up in the same town. Our mothers were close. Everyone assumed we'd end up together. Yeah, she said. He told me that you were his first love and then you broke his heart. I laughed, a short bitter sound. Of course he did. I met her eyes. That's not what happened. I walked her through it again, this time more carefully, picking my words like stepping stones over a river. The party, the walk home, the dorm room. I said no, I told her. I said stop. I tried to push him off. He didn't care. He forced himself on me sexually. That's how you were conceived. Her face went very still, like someone had hit pause. Mom, she said slowly, you never said it like that before. I couldn't, I admitted. I could barely say it to myself. I told her about the police, the officers' bored eyes, the questions that felt like accusations. I told her about the whispers on campus, the way friends had melted away. I told her about my own mother sitting at our kitchen table, holding Victor's hands and telling me not to ruin his future. You were a baby when I moved, I said. Mark and I got married. He adopted you. We decided together that we would be your parents and that Victor would be nothing. We thought we were giving you a clean slate. Tears had started to gather in her eyes, but her expression stayed unreadable. So you lied to me, she said quietly. My whole life. We omitted, I said, then winced at how weak that sounded. We thought we were protecting you. From what? She snapped, the tears vanishing under anger. From knowing where I came from the truth. Do you have any idea how messed up it feels to find out my entire origin story is a secret? I swallowed. This was the part I dreaded most. I have copies of the old reports, I said. The statements, the notes from the school counselor. They're in my closet. I can show them to you if you want. You don't have to take my word. Her eyes flashed. You think a stack of paper is going to make this feel better? She asked. But when I stood and went to the bedroom, she followed. I brought back a worn manila folder, edges frayed from years of being moved, but never opened. My hands shook as I placed it on the coffee table. It's all there, I said. What I told them, what he told them, what they decided to ignore. She stared at it like it might explode. Then, slowly, she picked it up. I need to hear his side, she said, voice trembling. I can't just unknow everything he's told me. I need to confirm. I can't just take your word over the man who's been honest with me about wanting a relationship. Honest? The word scraped. He's been grooming you with half-truths and apologies he never gave me. Maybe, she said. Maybe not. I don't know. That's the point. I need time. I need to talk to him. I need to read this. She stood up, the folder clutched against her chest like armor. I'll call you, she said. When I'm ready. When the door closed behind her, my legs gave out. Mark caught me as I sank onto the couch, his arms wrapping around me, awkwardly around the wheelchair. I buried my face in his shoulder and let the sobs come. That evening, my phone buzzed while I was chopping vegetables I had no appetite to eat. Can I come over? Luna's text read. Tonight. My heart pounded. Of course, I typed back, fingers shaking. We're here. She arrived with red-rimmed eyes and no folder. The second she stepped through the door, she crumpled into me, sobbing. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. We sat at the dining table until the sky turned from pink to black. She told me she'd read every page, then called Victor and confronted him. At first, he'd denied everything, said I was twisting the past. But when she read his own words from the report back to him, words where he'd admitted I'd said no, but claimed I changed my mind, his mask had slipped. He said you were overreacting, she choked. That you were always a sensitive. He said you seduced him. I asked him if he understood what consent meant. He hung up on me. I listened, holding her hand, feeling this fragile, terrified hope unfurl in my chest. I'm so sorry, I kept repeating. I'm sorry you had to find out like this. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. She shook her head. I'm sorry I believed him, she said. I'm sorry I wanted him at the wedding. I feel sick thinking about it. I feel like I betrayed you and Dad. We talked about her childhood, about my panic attacks she remembered as Mom's bad days, about why Mark had always gone so overboard with extra gifts and compliments for her. I thought he was overcompensating because I was the only girl, she said with a sad smile. Now it all feels loaded. He loves you, I said. So much. He never wanted you to feel like a mistake. I don't, she said quickly. I didn't. Now I don't know how to feel about myself. She looked at me, eyes shining. But I know how I feel about him. I don't want him at the wedding. I don't even want him in my life. A fragile hope took root. We can make new memories, she said, squeezing my hand. Before the wedding, just us. A mother-daughter day. To To reclaim something that's actually ours. From the doorway, Mark watched us with this tentative smile I hadn't seen in days. I'll help with whatever you need, he said. Venue, dress, cake, whatever makes this easier. As she left that night, Luna texted me from the driveway. Booked something special for us before the big day. You'll love it. She added a winking emoji, but noticeably didn't mention who'd walk her down the aisle now. I told myself it didn't matter. She'd chosen me and Mark. I went to bed thinking that lunch at the restaurant had been the low point. I didn't know yet that she was already coordinating with Victor again, behind my back. Our first session with Dr. Harris was in a small, cozy office downtown that smelled faintly of lavender. There were soft chairs instead of a couch, a bookshelf full of titles about trauma and family systems, and a box of tissues on the coffee table that felt both cliché and necessary. Dr. Harris was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a calm presence that made my shoulders drop a fraction. She listened as I haltingly summarized the last few weeks: the wedding ultimatum, the restaurant ambush, the confession to Luna, the shaky reconciliation. When I mentioned Victor's full name, she raised her eyebrows. I'm going to be transparent, she said. I can't share details, but I've seen that name in my work before. You're not the first person who's brought him up in this context. The room seemed to tilt. You mean other women? I asked. She nodded. Again, I can't say more, but it might help you to know that your experience fits a pattern I've seen. It's not an isolated incident. Something in my chest loosened and broke at the same time. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. The weight of that nearly knocked me over. Dr. Harris spent most of that session drawing little diagrams on a notepad. What you're describing with Luna, she said, is a form of trauma bonding. She's been raised in a family where your pain was the undercurrent, even if you never named it. Now the source of that pain is offering her validation, attention, a special role in his life. It's intoxicating, especially for someone her age who's trying to define herself. So she clings to him, Mark said, because she thinks he's the missing piece. Exactly, Dr. Harris said, and he's using language like healing and reclaiming to frame his presence as therapeutic, when really he's rewriting the narrative in his favor. She helped me script boundaries about the wedding, writing actual sentences on a sticky note for me to practice. You can say I love you and want to celebrate you, but I will not be in the same space as Victor, she coached. You're not making her choose, you're stating your limit. It feels like making her choose, I admitted, and I'm terrified that if I push too hard, I'll lose her. We talked about whether I should go public, warn others about Victor, tell the extended family everything. I'm torn, I said. If he's hurt other people, I feel like I should say something. But last time I tried, I was called a liar. I don't know if I can survive that again. Dr. Harris didn't push. We can take that one step at a time, she said. For now, focus on your immediate safety and your core relationships. After therapy, Mark and I drove home in thoughtful silence. In the driveway, he turned to me. We can't keep this just between us and Luna anymore, he said. Alex already knows more than we intended. Mia and Daniel deserve the truth too. The fallout will be ugly, but it's already happening. That evening, we gathered the 3 older kids around the dining table. The same table where Luna had announced her plan, where she'd wept in my arms, where I'd nearly collapsed. I told them everything. Alex's face darkened with each detail he'd already suspected. Daniel, usually quiet, stood up halfway through and paced the kitchen, fists clenching and unclenching. Mia cried openly, tears streaming down her cheeks. When I got to the restaurant ambush, Daniel slammed his hand on the counter. She did what? He shouted. She brought him to you? Like some twisted surprise? Daniel, Mark said sharply, but his own eyes were blazing. Mia wiped her cheeks with the heel of her hand. People need to know, she whispered. He's out there playing Daddy of the Year while you're having panic attacks in parking lots? No way. Please don't do anything rash, I said, suddenly exhausted. I didn't tell you this so you'd go on a crusade. I needed you to understand why I can't be at that wedding if he is. Mia didn't answer. Later that night, I passed her room and saw the blue glow of her phone lighting her face, her thumbs flying. Mia? I asked from the doorway. She looked up, eyes fierce. People need to know what he did, she said. I'm not naming you, I'm not naming Luna, but I'm done staying quiet. The next week, I logged into Facebook for the first time in months, and my heart dropped into my stomach. My notifications were a wall of red dots. At the top of my feed was Mia's post, already shared dozens of times. It was long, angry, and heartbreakingly specific. She didn't use my name, but anyone who knew our family could connect the dots. She wrote about a man in our community who violated my mother's consent at 19 and is now being honored at a wedding. She wrote about the restaurant ambush, about re-traumatizing a survivor for the sake of aesthetics. Daniel and Alex had shared it with their own comments. Believe women, even when it's inconvenient, and proud of my sister for speaking up. The comments were a mess. Strangers were praising my kids for standing up for victims. Old acquaintances from our hometown chimed in with, "I always heard rumors about him." A few people defended him, called it cancel culture. My hands shook as I scrolled, my own story reduced to a debate thread. I felt this bizarre mix of vindication and horror. Part of me wanted to scream, "Yes, that's what he did." Another part wanted to crawl under a rock. Luna's name wasn't mentioned, but anyone who knew she was getting married could infer. She was being dragged by association. I called Mia. She answered on the first ring. "Mom, I know what you're going to say," she started. "I never wanted my trauma to become public entertainment," I said, my voice breaking. "Please, take it down. Not for him, for Luna, for me." There was a long pause. "He doesn't deserve your protection," she said finally. "But, okay, I'll delete it. But I'm not taking back what I said. She needed a wake-up call, Mom." When I hung up, I wasn't sure if I'd stopped something or just redirected it. The internet has a way of keeping things alive even after you hit delete. That evening, as I was making tea, my phone pinged with a message request. Tom's mother, Karen. We'd met a few times. Nice, composed, the type who brought homemade pies to family barbecues. "Hi, Eva," her message read. "I think we should talk. The wedding plans have changed drastically. Can we meet tomorrow?" My hands went cold. I deleted the Facebook app from my phone, as if that could slow the avalanche. Then I sat at the kitchen table, heart pounding, and waited for the next shoe to drop. Karen and Tom came over the next afternoon, both looking like they'd aged 10 years in a week. We sat at the same dining table again. My life stage, for what I knew was going to be another terrible conversation. Tom stared at his hands. Karen, ever composed, folded hers on the table and met my eyes. "I'm going to be direct," she said. "Tom has ended the engagement." The words still hit like a punch, even though I'd suspected. "Oh," I said weakly. I see. I'm so sorry," Tom blurted, eyes shining. "We didn't want to do this over text. You deserve to hear it from us." Karen nodded. "We like Luna," she said. "We really do. But after what's come out, we can't welcome someone into our family who would ignore her mother's pain like that, who would honor a man like that at her wedding. It speaks to values we can't align with." Tom swallowed. "I talked to her," he said, "after I saw the posts, and she admitted some of it. I asked her why she didn't tell me, why she thought it was okay to ambush you like that. She kept saying it was her healing, her choice. She said you were overreacting, that you were stuck in the past." He looked up at me, eyes full of conflict. "I asked if she'd talked to Victor since you told her the truth. She said yes. That he told her you were vindictive, that you'd been trying to ruin his life for years, that you'd exaggerated." Hearing her repeat his words, he shook his head. "I couldn't do it. I can't tie myself to someone who's that deep in his story." Hearing that, a fresh wave of nausea hit. "So my truth cost her fiancé," I said hoarsely. "If I'd just stayed silent and skipped the wedding, maybe she'd still have you." Karen's expression softened. "No," she said firmly. "Her choices cost her this, not yours. You didn't invite him back into her life. You didn't arrange that grotesque surprise. You told the truth. That's not a crime." Tom nodded. "I'm not blaming you," he said. I'm grateful you told us. I wish she'd listened sooner." After they left, the house felt emptier than it had in years. I sat on the couch, my phone heavy in my hand. It buzzed a few minutes later with a voicemail notification from Luna. No text, just the little red dot. I pressed play and held it to my ear. Her voice came through, shaking with rage. "I hope you're happy," she hissed. "You've ruined my life. My fiancé left me, my siblings hate me, everyone thinks I'm some kind of monster. All because you couldn't let go of something that happened 30 years ago. You did this, Mom. You! I will never forgive you." The message ended with a sharp inhale, like she'd been about to say more and stopped herself. I sat there, clutching the phone, staring at the blank TV screen. My next move felt like a cliff edge. If I chased her, if I tried to explain again, would I just drive her further into his arms? If I backed off, was I abandoning her to him? At my next session with Dr. Harris, I played the voicemail on her laptop. She listened intently, her brows knitting. When it ended, she rewound a section and played it again. "Do you hear that?" she asked. "The way she phrases things? You've been trying to ruin his life for years. You're stuck in the past." Those are almost certainly his words. She's echoing him. "So she's parroting him," I said, feeling sick. "He's in her head." Dr. Harris nodded. "This is what I was talking about with trauma bonding," she said. "He's offering her a narrative where she's the loyal daughter defending her misunderstood father against a vindictive mother. It gives her a sense of purpose. It's powerful, and very hard to break from the outside." She suggested I start documenting everything, messages, incidents, dates. "I'm not saying he'll escalate," she said, "but if he does, you'll want a record. And if you ever decide to pursue legal protection, this will matter." A few days later, I found myself in a downtown law office, sitting across from a woman in a navy blazer, who looked like she'd seen it all. I laid out the story. The past case, the recent ambush, the online fallout, the voicemail. I want to know my options, I said. Restraining orders, anything. I don't want him near me. I don't want him using my daughter to get to me. She listened, took notes, then sighed. Without a recent direct threat or physical incident, your options are limited, she said. We could attempt a harassment order if he contacts you repeatedly, but right now most of the contact is through your daughter. It's murky. What about defamation? I asked. If I go public, if I name him. She leaned back. Truth is a defense to defamation, she said. But as you know from your first attempt to get justice, truth is sometimes hard to prove in court. He could threaten to sue. Even if he lost, the process would be draining. I'm not saying don't speak. I'm saying be strategic and be prepared. Walking back to my car afterward, the city noise felt muffled. I questioned every step. If I pushed harder, legally, publicly, would I be protecting Luna from a predator? Or just pushing her deeper into his narrative of me as the villain? That evening, I dialed Luna's number with a rehearsed apology on my tongue. I wanted to tell her I was sorry about the social media mess, that I hadn't asked the kids to post anything, that I never wanted her wedding to become a battleground. The phone rang twice, then clicked. But it wasn't Luna's voice that came through. It was his. Hello? Victor said, sounding almost amused. Oh, Eva? She's too upset to talk to you right now. Maybe try again when you're ready to stop playing the victim. I hung up so fast my thumb hurt. My heart was pounding. A minute later, my phone buzzed with a text from Alex. A screenshot of an Instagram story. It was a photo of a guest room. Generic beige walls, a suitcase on the floor, a pair of women's shoes by the bed. The caption read, New Beginnings, with a heart emoji. At the top, I saw the username, Luna. At the bottom, Alex had typed, She picked him, Mom. My stomach dropped. I zoomed in on the edges of the photo, on the faint pattern of the carpet. I didn't recognize the room, but I didn't have to. Every cell in my body knew where she was. That night, we sat around the kitchen table again. Me, Mark, Alex, Mia, and Daniel. The kids had different versions of the same screenshot on their phones. The air was thick with anger and fear. We should go over there, Mia said immediately. We should get her out. He's manipulating her. She's not thinking straight. Mark slammed his cane down on the floor, the crack startling all of us. No, he said, voice shaking but firm. We are not storming his house. We're not giving him another chance to play the victim of a hysterical family. That's exactly the kind of scene he'd love. So we just... What? Leave her there? Daniel demanded. With him? I looked at each of them, then at the spot on the table where Victor's name had once glowed in gold on that invitation. I thought about the law office, about Dr. Harris's diagrams, about the way my heart had nearly stopped on that patio. I'm not going after her, I said quietly. I won't go to his house. I won't show up at any event where he might be. I'm choosing to protect myself. I'm going to wait. If she wants to come home, she'll know where to find us. Saying it out loud felt like dropping a weight and picking up another. Was this loving detachment? Or was I abandoning my daughter to an unsafe man because I was tired? Alex leaned forward. What if we send her something? He suggested. One message, calm, no ultimatums. Explain why we're going no contact for now, but make it clear the door's open if she needs us. That way she has a lifeline that isn't him. We drafted the email together at the dining table, each word debated. We told her we loved her, that we respected her adulthood, that we couldn't be in contact as long as she was living with Victor, because it wasn't safe for me emotionally. We told her if she ever wanted to talk without him present, she could reach us through email or Tom's family or Dr. Harris if she wanted a neutral third party. When we hit send, the silence in the room was deafening. That night, lying in bed, listening to Mark's slow breathing and the distant hum of traffic, I stared at the ceiling and wondered if Luna would see our message as a rope or a knife. Months slipped by, measured in therapy appointments, physical therapy sessions for Mark, and holidays with an empty chair we all pretended not to notice. Dr. Harris and I met every other week. Sometimes Mark joined. Sometimes it was just me. We haven't heard from her, I told Dr. Harris on a rainy Tuesday. Not directly. I see glimpses online. Photos of coffee cups, city skylines, a new job badge. Nothing with him, nothing with us. She guided me through grounding exercises when I described the recurring nightmare. Luna trapped in Victor's old house, pounding on the windows while I stood outside, unable to move. Notice what's different between the dream and reality, she said. In reality, she has a phone, a job. She's not a child. You're not powerless. Mark's physical therapy became its own small ritual. I'd sit on a bench in the rehab center and watch him practice walking with his cane, each step a tiny victory. We'd joke about the bad coffee, about the cheesy motivational posters. We didn't talk about the missing face at Thanksgiving, the unopened invitation still tucked in a drawer. At the grocery store one afternoon, I overheard two women by the cereal aisle whispering, You know, that wedding that never happened, one said. I heard it was because the bride's mom had some meltdown about an old boyfriend. For a second, I froze, the familiar heat of shame rising in my chest. Then I picked up my box of oatmeal, walked past them, and didn't say a word. Let them gossip. They weren't in that dorm room. They weren't on that patio. They didn't get a vote. One evening on our balcony, the city lights flickering below, I admitted to Mark, sometimes I still feel like the villain. Like, if I'd just gone to the wedding and sat in the back, none of this would have happened. He rested his hand over mine. You finally chose yourself, he said, after decades of swallowing it for everyone else's comfort. If she ever comes back, you'll be stronger for her because of that, not in spite of it. As we went inside, my phone lit up on the coffee table with an unknown number calling. I stared at it, heart racing, and let it ring out. The voicemail icon popped up. For a long time, I just looked at it, my thumb hovering. Later that night, when the house was quiet, I pressed play. Hi, Mom. Luna's voice was softer than I remembered, tired around the edges. It's me, obviously. There was a little laugh that sounded more like a sigh. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm working. Moved out. I'm staying with a friend for now. She didn't say whose friend. She didn't say his name at all. I needed time, she went on. Away from everyone's opinions. Yours, his, my siblings, the internet's. A pause. I'm not ready to talk yet. Not really. But I wanted you to know I heard your email. And thank you for at least telling the truth eventually. The message ended with a quiet, I'll call again, maybe, and a click. I replayed it on the couch with Mark, both of us leaning in like we could catch more meaning between the lines. The distance in her voice hurt, but there was a tiny crack of something else too. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe curiosity, maybe the first step away from his story and toward her own. In my final therapy session of the year, I told Dr. Harris, I started a journal. I smiled weakly. About everything, university, the case, the move, the kids. I'm thinking, maybe one day I'll give it to her, so she has my version in my own words, not filtered through police reports or social media. That sounds like a powerful project, Dr. Harris said. For you, even if she never reads it. You're reclaiming your story from everyone who's tried to tell it for you. On a crisp Saturday, Mark and I walked through a nearby park. A wedding party was taking photos under the big oak tree. Bride in lace, groom in navy, parents fussing with bouquets. I felt a sharp pang, imagining what our day could have looked like. Then, strangely, a wave of relief. I'd survived my non-wedding. I'd walked away from the aisle that would have broken me. That night, sitting at the same kitchen table where everything had started, I pulled out a sheet of stationery. I wrote Luna a short letter. I told her I loved her, that I was here whenever she was ready to talk, that I would never be in a room with Victor again, not at a wedding, not at a funeral, not anywhere, that this wasn't a punishment. It was a boundary I needed to stay whole. I told her I was proud of her for working, for surviving, even if I didn't know the details. My hands shook as I signed it. Love, Mom. I slipped it into an envelope, sealed it, and instead of addressing it, I placed it in the top drawer of the sideboard, next to the old invitation with his name in gold. I closed the drawer gently and rested my palm on the wood for a moment. The house was quiet. Mark was in the living room, the TV murmuring softly. Somewhere out there, my daughter was figuring out who she was, without a man like Victor defining her. I didn't know when my hands would stop shaking enough to send the letter. I didn't know if she'd ever walk through our front door again, or if I'd ever see her in a white dress under string lights. But for the first time in a long time, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. My story wasn't his to write anymore. And if Luna ever wanted to read it, really read it, it would be there, waiting, like the letter in the drawer, for whenever she was ready.